as well. Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Sanjay Dalal, the founder and CEO of oGoing, and we're going to hit one more thing, record it to the iCloud. There you go. So this is oGoing's last Fireside Chat of 2021. Thank you all for being part of the community. We have a very good topic today about creating and leading inclusive cultures. And I'm going to introduce our speaker in a moment. But oGoing started, the year with many different conversations on important topics, from marketing to sales to how to grow your e-commerce business, to how to lead, your business growth, with new types of social marketing. And importantly, we also delved into topics to do with, the soft skills, in the middle of the year. And I think we're coming full closure now on a very important topic, which is, how to lead your business, your culture, so that you really create, I would say, a place that thrives, that where everybody is inspired every day to go to work. And I think we have a very great speaker today. And again, I'll reintroduce myself because we just started the recording. I'm Sanjay Dalal, the founder and CEO of oGoing. And joining us today is Michelle Beauchamp. Michelle, did I say your last name correctly? I hope.
As Sanjay, it was fine. It gets pronounced a lot of ways. The way I say it is Beauchamp, but Beauchamp, it's good. We're good.
I'll try to get it right the second time, Michelle. And so let me share a couple of slides quickly, and we will, then introduce Michelle as well as our participants today, and do a little roundtable, and then get into the fireside chat right after that.
Awesome.
So here, let me share the slides here. Hold on. There we go. So again, today's fireside chat is on leading inclusive culture. I'm the host for the day. And I wanted to share a quick quote, which is, from Michelle Beauchamp. It's very, I'm sure she lives and breathes it every day. But for many of us, it is something that, we have to become more and more aware of as we are helping, grow our organization and helping, add more folks, as well as making sure that the ones who already have, they are enjoying their work to the fullest and giving their best. And this is an important quote: is, diversity is having a seat at the table. Inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice to be heard. And I think it's, these words are prominent. I think everybody talks about it. What is DEI, etc., and so on. But I think to live them or to make structural changes at your organization, I think that's kind of where things fall apart. What is it that you have to really think about, doing, if you may, to make it happen? And we're going to talk to Michelle about this, in our chat today. A quick oGoing update, so we are a growing business community. We have had a very interesting year this year. A lot of us are still, online, still doing a lot of things online, and which is where oGoing really suits well. We have 100,000 small business members today, growing every day. We're adding 50 to 100 members every day organically, and they're coming not only from the US, but all over the world at this point. Our business is small business, so every small business that aspires to grow, that aspires to connect, that aspires to find new partners, and new customers, we welcome all of them. One big difference in oGoing and some of the other communities is that, every business is verified. So every business that joins is authentic. and we make sure of that. So that way, when you make that connection, you can be assured that you're connecting to an authentic member business. What oGoing helps you do once you're on it, it helps you boost your social media brand, not only on oGoing, but also on the major social networks. It's a great platform for business networking. Alan has been an active member. Alan, thank you so much for many years, and I really appreciate you being active on oGoing and connecting to all the businesses. And one of the positive effects is once you are on oGoing and as you're sharing more of your stories, it helps you boost your SEO, which is really the ability for new customers to find you online, especially on the search engines of the world, and the more you're active on oGoing, the more visibility you're growing, not only on Google, but on Yahoo and Bing and some of the new engines like DuckDuckGo and so on. So again, it's a great platform, free to join and free to make the connection. It just takes 5 to 10 minutes to get going. We do help businesses that need extra help, with their social media activities, and we have very affordable plans. We still continue with the same pricing that we had introduced many years ago, and we love to help our small businesses with this plan so we can help them grow. So now we will do a quick roundtable with the folks who are here and have them share a quick story about who they are, where they're joining in from. And if they can introduce yourself, let's keep it to about a minute to two. And let's start with Alan Holmes. Alan, go ahead, and to unmute your mic, you can hit the space bar or do it directly. There you go.
Well, again, happy holidays, Sanjay, and all the panel. And yes, I'm honored to be a part of oGoing for so many years. My name is Alan Holmes. I reside in Hemet, California, and I specialize in connecting business owners, whether they're storefront or home-based. The entrepreneurs, those who are coming up with their new books and their ideas and the next great venture, or the consumers that buy from the first two. In short, I call myself a human search engine, or one of my associates call me a human Rolodex. So I love to collaborate and network and connect to figure out how I can be of service to you, which comes from my background of growing up in Compton, as well as serving this great country as a 13 Bravo from 87 to 90. So take care of all your veterans if you know them. And if you are a veteran, thank you for your service. It's an amazing community. But thank you for allowing me to be a part of this panel, and looking forward to learning more.
Thank you, Alan, for your great service and importantly for being a very active member for us on the oGoing community. I really appreciate it, my friend. Let me introduce you to Piyush Malik, who I've known since many years from our Fremont days in the 90s and beyond. And Piyush, if you can hit the space bar, you can unmute your mic and share your story, please. Yeah.
Hey, Sanjay, great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yes,
hello, Michelle, Ellen, Murali, and Suresh, and others on the panel as well. I'm Piyush Malik. I live in the Bay Area, as Sanjay alluded to. I've been here for the last 25 years, of course, as an immigrant. However, I am very much a community man, and I am involved in a lot of non-profits. One of them you can see right here, ASCI, American Society of Engineers of Indian Origin, which I proudly represent, and I'm part of a lot of alumni groups as well. So I'm wearing all the gears, as you can say, as representing them. But more than just the engineers, it's how we as human beings live in our communities, work in our work environments, and integrate the two. That's been my focus on, and basically the philosophy of life and work-life balance. And happy to be here. I'm sure I'll field more questions as they come. Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush, for joining us today, and really appreciate it. And good to see you, my friend. Looking great there in Bay Area. Let's introduce Murali. Murali, are you able to talk? Go ahead, Murali.
Sure. Hi, my name is Murali Krishnan. I'm a new charter member of TIE SoCal, and that's kind of how I discovered this program. I am right now a co-founder and chief product officer for a company called Rappel, which stands for Rapid Learning. And our mission is to help organizations elevate their workforce through engaging training through mobile-first approach. And one of the areas that we have talked to a few companies is about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I thought, okay, this is an interesting topic. I should kind of participate as well. So I live in Seattle, Washington. It's 40 degrees out here, preparing for the winter season. That said, I've been here for about 27 years. I worked at Microsoft, Starbucks, a couple of nonprofits and early stage startup companies as well. So this is my recent one for the last year plus in Rappel.
Thanks, Murali, for joining from Seattle. My daughter goes to school there at UW in Seattle.
Oh, fantastic. Well, tell me when you're visiting us.
Absolutely.
My daughter is in the same university as well.
Senior now, so I have promised her I'll visit you before you graduate and then when you graduate. So I have 2 visits pending.
Awesome.
It was funny, like yesterday we had over 2 inches of rain and we were all excited and she's like, Dad, that's all in a day's work in Seattle. We had our annual rains here. I'm like, come on, you don't get this.
And it was cold here. It has been cold here too.
We call 50s as a very cold day.
It was 36 degrees this morning. That's cold.
That's cold. Yeah, in the morning, you're right. But would love to also have you, Murali, if you ever come down to SoCal, would love to see you in person as well.
We do. I know Shankar quite a bit for the last couple of years, and he's been my, mentor / influencer to get it going.
Absolutely. Great man. Shankar is our jam of our leader for sure. Thank you. Yes. Suresh, are you able to chat quickly? Suresh, you can unmute. Go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I'm calling from Tennessee, so there you go. I live in Southern California, so Piyush and I go way back. Sanjay and I go way back. The other 3 panels on there, I'm not familiar with you 3. I belong to quite a few organizations, most notably the one that Piyush is heading, ASCI.
Yes.
It helps a lot of engineers and especially young and newcomer in the space. Okay, and so it's an awesome organization. When you get a moment, look that one up. The other one is Habitat for Humanity. I do quite a bit there. Okay, I used to also be, now I'm back with Thai. I used to be part of Thai and now I've rejoined them as well. So there are a couple other organizations, one religious based, so I'm involved in that as well. So other than that, I work for Emerson as a vice president of sales. But in my spare time, I, along with my wife, found a company. Didn't realize, sometimes what is it? I always screw up the phrases, but I believe the way I have it right is right. The inconvenience is mother of all inventions. Okay, so a couple of people, Sanjay, you're familiar with it. So is Piyush. We combined a toothbrush with a tongue scraper. Didn't realize the impact it's going to have on people and our overall health. So I'm really excited about it. So that's it on my end.
Suresh, great to join you and great to have you here today. I appreciate it. Toki is a very interesting play. We need to catch up on that and see what all we can help you with in 2022 for sure, my friend. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let me formally introduce our speaker for the day, as well as we're going to learn a lot from her, Michelle. And let me quickly share the screen again. So let's go back to a little fun here. There you go. And so Michelle Beauchamp, she's the president and CEO of the Champ Group, a certified coach, speaker, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. And, if you're not familiar with that, they are the leading leadership training team, I would say, in the country at this point, right, Michelle? They're like pretty much
in the country for sure. And I tell you, we have a lot of other countries who are involved in.
And international at this point. I was going to come to that, absolutely. Yeah. And she has been in corporate America, as a sales leader in telecommunications, as an entrepreneur as well for 10 plus years. But I think most importantly, what she loves doing is she loves helping others explore their strengths improve the areas of weaknesses, and others meaning, leaders, CEOs, execs, professionals, and really help you through your areas of weaknesses through through a journey. Right? She talks about the journey of figuring out, the inner discovery, and how you can really embrace, and create the diverse and inclusive cultures, that really enriches not only relationships, but ultimately increases productivity. And we're going to ask her questions on that quickly. And she is a member of e-speakers. She's a prolific speaker. So if you all would love to have her as a speaker in the future on many topics that she can share her expertise on, besides DEI as well, and FOR, the program that she's part of, how to build customer team and community excellence. And she's also a member of the Connected Women of Influence, which I've learned about it recently, but would like to hear more about how they're doing. And an SUE coach, successful, unstoppable, empowered talk coach. Interesting thing. But what I really loved she does as well as a volunteer is she's an advocate, a very avid advocate for breast cancer. And just recently she had a walk, I believe the previous weekend, the Susan Common 60-mile walks, and I think there are different categories, 39 miles for Avon as well. And I think I just heard they just raised multiple millions over the weekend.
Yeah.
So Michelle, thanks for doing the walk. Thank you for promoting breast cancer awareness. It kind of comes home as you and I talked about recently with what's happening, but definitely I'm so glad that you are joining us today, and you're going to share a lot of fun, I would say insights, as well as things that can really help us gear our organizations better, and in a more inclusive fashion, as we look forward to 2022. Mm-hmm. Michelle, how's it going? How is 2021 for you so far?
Well, thank you. You know what? It's been another interesting year. But I want to thank you, Sanjay, for inviting me to join you, and also thank you to all the gentlemen. We got to get some more women on here, right? But thank you for the gentlemen for joining, and really appreciate it. And one thing that I heard is several people have been working for corporate and now are running their business, and some are doing both. So we continue to show that we're able to do a lot, right, as human beings, for sure. So how has 21 been? It's funny. I try and come up with a slogan every year. Like for 2021, I said, I'm going to have more fun. In 2021. And right now I'm trying to come up with something for 2022, and I haven't come up with that one yet. Other than so far, it's just let's do what we need to do, right? So so it has been just another interesting year, I think, of adapting and being resilient.
Yes.
And so I think that's it. Maybe that's our new normal. Maybe that's it. And if that's it, it's not a bad thing, but it just does mean that we need to be intentional when we do it, so that we don't get frustrated when it comes time to make a shift, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot in there. You're right. How to be adaptive, resilient, intentional. I mean, it's a tall order, right? I mean, every year we've been asked to do a little more.
It is. And the thing that I would say too about 2021, which ties right into what I do, right? And that is the value of leadership has become more prevalent than ever. It is so interesting. I mean, the Great Resignation. I was on a presentation a couple of days ago, and what I learned from that one was this is a hard number to imagine, but 8.5 million people quit their jobs, said, I quit, in the months of July and August. Okay, that's a lot of people who are leaving, and there's a reason why they're leaving. So my hope is that leaders of organizations will begin to recognize that they can't just continue with business as usual, or their employees are going to leave, and they already are leaving. So the commitment to developing leaders and employees and I have a metaphor that I use, Sanjay, and it's a bridge, because when I did one of those walks, I did the Avon 39-mile walk once in San Francisco.
Mhm.
And I, side note, I was afraid of bridges. I couldn't stand bridges. Oh man, especially bridges that go, high bridges that go over water. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, I remember my first time on that, and I was afraid too. It took
Really?
me a few trips to get over that.
I used to have such a fear of bridges. So I decided to go do the walk in San Francisco, because they walked across the bridge. And I was like, okay, this is going to make me get over that bridge. So
Yeah.
I use the bridge as a metaphor now, and to help people get from where they are to where they need to be. And there's such a gap from what employees want and what they're getting. So I really hope, so how's 2021 been? It's been an eye-opening and an awakening, I believe. And so I hope that 2022 is going to be a recognition of the importance to offer more development for everybody, leaders and employees. That's my hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge with that, the Great Resignation, is I don't know if there'll be a great, re-emergence of employees next year. It doesn't seem that way as of today, with the way things are. But let's hope for a better 2022. Let's talk about why. And we're talking about the Great Resignation, and tied to that, let's talk about the conversation of culture. Why it keeps coming up so much, even more so now. Does it tie back to our employers not doing enough, or are employees becoming more short-sighted? What is really going on? I should not use that word.
I think it's I think it's a combination of what you said. And this is the first time we've had so many generations all working together, right?
Yeah.
And so we have different generations have different expectations. And the baby boomers, which I'm that generation, used to be able to keep their head down and just get the work done, right?
Yeah.
Right. That was what we were taught. Keep your head down and get the work done.
Yeah.
And then Gen X kind of does the same thing, right? But not as much. And then I see we have a question. And then millennials and have expectations to be treated differently. So the days of the bosses barking at the employees and barking out orders and being, demanding without showing empathy, those days are over. And so what I think is happening is that employees are realizing they want to be appreciated. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be able to earn what they believe they're worth. And they're willing to speak up about it, And if they don't get what they want, then as we can see, they're willing to go find it someplace else.
Wow.
So, so just the way we treat people, I think the way leaders have been used to treating people used to work. I mean, that used to work, it used to be okay to shout and yell, but it's not okay anymore. And that's a really good thing, because people deserve to be treated how they want to be treated. And I can't think of anyone who really says, okay, it was a good day, I got yelled at and reprimanded. That's just not what people want. So if we can learn how to respect each other and not judge each other for the differences, that comes kind of to the DEIB part, right? But too much judging has been going on. And so now, if we stop judging and start appreciating people for our differences and accepting, okay, so that's your jam, all right. And this is mine, so that's okay too, right? So that's again what my hope is. But I think that the generations, all the awareness of all the injustice that we've seen over the last few years, that also has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And so I think everything together, which a lot of it happened in 2020, has just made people think, not to mention working from home and never thinking you were going to work from home because of COVID. People did start to recognize, I don't really want to live here. I'm going to go live over there. I don't really want to work here. I'm going to go work there. Started feeling like life is short, and we need to be able to enjoy our life. And so enjoy the journey is what I'm thinking people have made the decision to do.
Yeah, and I think it's not a natural thing. I mean, You're right. Those generation when I started working was, if the boss tells you you got to do this, you get it done. That's it.
Yeah. No
Marching on,
discussion.
marching orders have been given, and that's what you're supposed to. And I think now this new generation, they're definitely more expressive. I want to say they share their emotions a lot more. I think they want to not just be comfortable; they want to feel like they belong. That's kind of what it is, and I think it's tough, right? If you're not used to having a team which has all those, if even a 10-member team could have 10 different
Oh, for
directions that
sure. Yeah.
everybody wants to go, and how do you manage that? It's not an easy ask.
No, it's not. I'll tell you, it's challenging. And you know what you just said too, is that people do want to be listened to. Well, so that's such a big part of it. And many years ago, we learned from Stephen Covey from the
Yes.
seven habits of highly effective people, that more than anything else, people want to be heard and understood. And
Mhm.
so I believe that leaders now know that, right? That before someone might speak up and they would say, yeah, I don't really want to hear that. Well, now that's not okay to say that. Now what a leader is learning is that whether or not they agree, they need to listen to what the person's saying. And I have a couple other things that I add to that. So people want to be heard and they want to be understood. And they also want to be accepted. And that's
Mm.
belonging, right? They also want to be accepted. So that means no judging, right? Taking it back to that. And then the other part of that I think leaders are starting to learn and employees are definitely sharing is they want to be felt.
Felt. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So heard and understood for sure. Accepted, belonging, and then
Yeah.
felt. So empathy, and your description of diversity and inclusion at the beginning was spot on. And belonging, I want to be heard. I want you to hear me.
Mm.
And then, and then
Not just fluff. I mean, this is real stuff.
real stuff.
Yeah. So can a leader, let's say, invest in soft skills to enable themselves as well as some team members where this doesn't come naturally? I mean, this is, as I said, for managers, this just gets harder, right? They're not used to some of this.
They're not. And so, we can learn. And so thanks for asking that. Here's what I'm excited about.
Mm.
In the past, it was all about the hard skills, right? The technical training and
Yeah.
it was all about that. And the soft skills were poo-pooed.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we don't really
You talk soft skills and they think you're soft,
exactly, right? And that's really what wrong thinking is that. So
Yeah.
now,
What's wrong with you?
right? And so now what people are realizing is we're dealing with people. And so people, that's the soft skill. Well, and I wish it wasn't even called soft skill, hard skill, but
Yeah.
it's people, and
People
people
skills.
are emotional, and people have thoughts and they have abilities and so and with emotions. And so the more that leaders can understand that they need to be able to relate to their people. And when they relate to their people, guess what happens? The work is more likely to be done correctly and the first time, and people feel good about doing it. So if you don't feel good, if your boss treats you bad, you're not feeling very loyal. You're not feeling very committed to get that project done. And so if you are treated with respect, though, the way that you want to be treated, then you're more likely to do the work. So what I really work to help leaders understand is that when we treat people well, so skill development, treat your people right, and then they'll be more likely to get the work done. And a couple ways to do that. One is, instead of like the old days where you bark the order and you expect it to be done
Yeah.
when they said to be done, is to ask questions. And this is a skill. First of all, it takes time. And we know that leaders are busy. We know that everybody's busy. They have too many things, they have a full plate. I call it a buffet running over, right? I mean, they've got a lot of things to do. And so it's challenging for them to be willing to take the time to ask the questions. And when they take the time to ask the questions and then a follow-up question, right? Based on what the person said, then there should be another question that they ask to make sure either that they heard it right, or maybe there's something that sparked the curiosity. So what I like to encourage people to do is to have a mindset of curiosity, right? Be willing to ask people things, you know, like instead of just jumping into, tell me what's going on with this project. Instead of that, so, you know, tell me what's going on with you, what's going on with your family. How are you feeling about things like one person mentioned their daughter goes to school in Seattle, and, you know, different things like that. Oh, so how's she like in Seattle? And, you know, so evaluating what the person says and elaborating on what they say by asking another question. Even if they seem challenged, you know, so, you know, it seems like you're kind of struggling with this project. Help me understand, what do you find to be the most challenging? Let's figure out how we can help you move forward with this project. Instead of judging, like, this person didn't get this done right, then find out, what did they not get done and why? What's the struggle? So what's helping? What's your biggest challenge? And how about if someone said, what are you feeling really good about today?
Oh.
Right? I mean, what do you think that it might throw somebody off because they're not used to being asked that, but then they'll start and think, wow, let me see, what am I feeling really good about today? And they'll come up with something that they're feeling good about. And the thing that we want to remember is this: the person who's asking the questions is the person who's showing that they care.
Right.
Right? When you're asking questions, you're showing that you care about what that person is going through, what their experiences are, what's going on with them. Because what I have learned too, Sanjay, is that you might think a conversation is not going well, and you might think it's you and something you said or did. And the reality is that everybody's dealing with stuff.
Yeah.
You know what? We put on a happy face and all that, but everybody's dealing with stuff.
Yes.
And when we take the time to acknowledge what that stuff might be and help them prioritize it, then we'll start to develop relationships. And so leaders can get more productivity and expect more loyalty and encourage people to stay at their job right now when they are working toward building this relationship, which is a skill. To your point, it is a skill. And it starts with mindset of curiosity, a mindset of caring. And you know what you just made me think about too, is that people are evaluating the people who they work with. Like some people on the call here, they run different organizations and associations, right? And when you recruit people to come into the association, or you have somebody to come work for your team, there's 3 questions. And I learned this, you know, from being involved with John Maxwell. There's 3 questions that people are asking.
3.
One question that they're asking is, do I like you? Right? So likability is important. I mean, if we don't think we like someone, we're not going to be able to work with them.
So it works both ways, the leader as well as the employee. Okay.
Exactly. So both people are saying, are you likable? You know, can I like you? Right? So compassionate, right? Compassionate. So that's one question people are asking. Another question people are asking is, can you help me? So if I come work for you and I have this goal, will you be able to help me get to where I want to go? And the leader saying, do you have the information available? Do you have the skill, the competency to be able to get the work done that I needed? So can you help me meet my goal as a team leader? Right? And then the other question is trust.
Trust me.
We know how important trust is. And we know that it builds up, and if it's broken, it is hard to build it back up. So trust is another one. And, you know, that's a matter of character. So as we're working to help people grow and leaders to figure out how to understand the people on our team more, think about those questions. What am I doing to show that I care? How am I showing I can help them? How am I showing that I like them and want them to like me? And how am I showing that they can trust me?
It's very important. I mean, there is something to be said, Michelle, on how you ask a question, right? You know, I've been told sometimes that my questions can be probing, where they insinuate as if the person isn't doing a proper job. So how do you really put it in such a way where the question doesn't become a question of how well you're performing, as opposed to I'm just here to
Yeah.
see how you're doing and
Yeah.
how we, how I can help you, because there is a
Yeah.
fine line there.
And thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that, Sanjay. So one thing we have to pay attention to is our tonality. I mean, that's about communication. I mean, the tonality tells us a lot. And by the way, there is tonality in emails and text too, right? But the tonality of our voice. So we really want to be mindful of our body language. So communication elements, body language, tonality, and words, right?
Yes.
And so while you're asking the question, pay attention, to your body language. Are your arms crossed? That might be, what's your facial expression look like, right? So,
Sure.
So when you think about the body language when you're asking the question, and then also the tonality is big, and we have to pay attention to that. As it shows the mood and it sets the tempo to how they're going to feel about it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say about asking questions is it's open-ended questions. And I do really want to convey that. Do you understand? That's a yes or no answer. And so that would not be appropriate. So we want to be mindful to ask people questions that help them talk, right? So those are the W's. So what's happening? You asked me that in the beginning. What's the year been like for you? What's happening, right? So what, when did you first find that you were kind of struggling with this? Where do you think you might find yourself next? Or how do you think this might help us? And who else can you think of that can help you get this done? So the open-ended questions that start with those W's, and then the how.
Not the why.
And the funny thing that you said about that why. So why is an open-ended question. However, we don't want to start with why.
Don't want to start with.
Because people can get defensive. Well, why'd you do that? Well, then you get defensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the best one is really what, because that's so open-ended, so that's really the best one. And another couple phrases that are really helpful too. One is tell me more. So I know you said this, tell me more about that, right? Or say more, tell me more. And then the other one is help me understand. And what's nice about that one is you really are vulnerable, because you're saying, I'm not really getting it. I'm kind of confused. And so when you say, help me understand, then you're asking for their help. And whenever we ask people for their help, they like it. The truth is people want to help people, right? So that's another way to kind of soften the question that you might have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think I'm learning here already. Good, Michelle. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for acknowledging that. Thanks for asking that too, especially because the way that we ask questions determines the response. Here's an interesting thing that I also got from John Maxwell. You only get answers to the questions you ask. And how many times are we guilty of wondering something, but not asking? And then we're not solving anything by not asking it, are we? So you only get answers to the questions you ask. After you have a conversation with someone or dialogue, you really shouldn't walk away scratching your head like, I wonder what they meant by that. You really should ask. So that's kind of a good principle to go by. If you wonder, ask. You only get answers to the questions you ask.
Totally. That's another point to note down for sure. Now, coming back to the training that you also provide, it has focused definitely recently on DEI, which is diversity, equity, inclusion. The word is equity, by the way, folks. Don't confuse with equality. They're connected, but not the same.
Right.
And now belonging.
Right.
So can you elaborate why, it's becoming even more critical? You talked earlier about the great rejection, the way things are happening in the workplace.
Right.
The exodus, if you may. So why this matters more now for both leaders as well as employees?
Yeah. One interesting thing is that so we're almost in 2022.
Yeah.
So by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials.
Amazing.
I know. So millennials have different expectations, like we said earlier, than baby boomers and Gen Xers. And so millennials, they've grown up different, having different expectations. And they expect to work in a culture with a lot of different people who are different than them. That's how we've raised them. I mean, I have 2 sons and they're millennials, and we've raised them that way. And I actually think that's a good thing, So they expect to work in an environment where it's not all white males.
Right.
They expect to work in an department where there's a lot of different people. So diversity, first of all, is really important. And here's what I've been discovering. The first thing people think about when they think of diversity is gender and race, right? That's the first thing they think about.
Yes.
So and that's measurable, right? Some other parts of diversity, other aspects of diversity are, one is I'm really glad we're becoming more aware of it, and that is disabilities.
Yes.
I saw a statistic not too long ago that says that there are a lot of people that have disabilities, very different disabilities that are not visual, and 74% of the workforce keep their disabilities quiet. Why is that? Because they think they'll be judged.
Wow.
And so the awareness that we need to have about a lot of differences, a lot of diversity. I mean, diversity even means personality. I was doing a training with some people, and we were talking about diversity. And one person said one thing that they feel that they're judged on is personality, that they feel as though because they're more quiet, that they're judged and they won't be considered for promotion opportunities. Well, so that means we're not being inclusive of different personalities, right? So diversity means a lot. Veteran status is another one. So whereas race and gender are certainly the most popular ones, and surely there have been many instances of so much bias against people who are different than them, right? I mean, in being a Black woman, clearly, I've experienced a lot of that, right? So that's one reason why it's important, is because we as companies, in order to grow, evidence shows, by the way, that companies that have more diversity are more profitable, 33% more profitable when you have diversity. Why is that? Because you have people who are different. So they have different backgrounds, they have different experiences, and they bring new thought, new perspectives to the table, right? We said invite people to the table. Well, they bring different experiences to the table, which means as a company, you can enjoy more profit. So as a business owner, obviously that's the bottom line. You need to make profit. Well, diversity is going to help with that. So that's part of it with diversity. And then inclusion, like you said on the chart, it said, invite other people, ask their opinion. So inclusion, right? Invite someone else to the coffee that you didn't used to go to coffee with. Invite someone to lunch. If there's somebody you didn't grow up with, certain kind of people, acknowledge that and begin to learn about it. So again, curiosity, right? Yep. Being willing to learn more about people and stop making judgments about them. Stop the stereotypes and start learning really what the great things are that they bring because of their differences. And equity, let me talk about that really quick, because you did bring that up. It's not the same as equality. So equality, for example, when I'm doing presentations, I do have a really good slide that I show where there's these 3 people looking over a fence, and one person can see it fine. A taller gentleman sees it fine. One person has 1 stool and they can see it fine with 1 stool. The other person has 1 stool, they can't see a thing. And so then they provide what the person needs. So the person who couldn't see at all, they needed more stools than the other 2 people. One person didn't need a stool, one person needed 1, and one person needed 2. So what that means is different people need different resources to be able to get the job done to the best of their potential. So we can't just give, let's say the work at home. So many people had to work at home, right? Last year, this year. Well, some people needed different kind of equipment in order to be able to get their work done, right? They didn't have an office to go work, and they had to work in a corner of their bedroom, right? So they needed more than the person who did have an office, right? So what we need to be able to do is offer what the person needs so that they can achieve to the best of their ability. So that's equity versus equality. Equality is I'm going to give you all 1 stool. Well, we don't all need 1 stool, right?
We don't need,
yeah. So that's, and then belonging is now definitely becoming a very popular part of it because of DEIB, because when you are included, then emotion, you feel as though you belong. So that's the emotional part of it with DEIB.
And that's a tough one, right? Because belonging is not something just happens, right? You have to do a lot where people really feel they belong.
You know what? I was listening to a podcast this morning. Actually, it was an HBR
I would
podcast.
love to just say, hey, everybody belong, and that's it. It's not.
Yeah, you know what? And here's what this was, she was talking about how she had been gaslighted, which means, people were running over her,
Yeah,
and they were looking over her, and they would not invite her to meetings, so she wasn't included. Therefore she didn't feel like she belonged. They weren't asking her opinion. There were conferences she would find out afterwards it happened that she was not invited to, or she would be told that she just didn't have whatever criteria they had decided you needed, right? And so she didn't feel like she belonged. Well, what happened? She left, which is what's happening. That is what's happening, is people are not feeling like their needs are being met, and they're leaving. So if we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable, Sanjay, I mean, I was in an interesting workshop a couple of days ago, and we had really interesting conversation about vulnerability. And some people take a look at vulnerability as a weakness, right?
Yes.
And I love Brene Brown. She has broken it down. And when we acknowledge that we're not perfect,
Yeah, we don't know everything.
we don't know everything, we don't understand everything. And when we acknowledge that and are honest with our team, then that shows that we're human. And then that frees them up to say, you know what, me too, I've struggled with this, right? And so then it goes back to relationships. We start to have better relationships. We're not all acting like we're perfect, but together with all of our strengths, you mentioned in my bio, I like the people with all of our strengths, we can do a great job, and we can make great things happen, and we can achieve our goals, and we can conquer because of all the strengths we bring together, complement each other, but not acting like we have everything and we know everything. So leadership really requires courage. And in order to have, when you have courage, then that means that you are willing to say, I do not understand this. I'm frustrated.
It takes a lot of courage to say that.
It takes a lot of courage to say that. It really does.
Because you suddenly, like, from the smartest person, you suddenly become the non-smart person.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
Yeah. And by the way, and you can't be the smartest person in the room, because if you are, you're not going to learn anything.
Oh yeah,
right?
of course. I was just showing it as a
Exactly
contrast, because everybody is tuned to, like, don't ask, because if you ask something stupid, you're going to look stupid,
You know what? Exactly. And that, I had a boss many years ago, and what he said, and I carry that with me all the time, and always share it too. But he said, Michelle, always remember that the only stupid question is the one that remains unasked. Yeah. And so, and we feel vulnerable, like, I don't want to ask that question because they might judge me. But if you don't ask that question, you're not going to get an answer. So you got to ask the question.
So I have one more question for you, and then we'll open it up for everybody to have their question, for you. And I think you already touched quite a bit on this, Michelle. So the key is, how does DEI and now belonging, I mean, how does it really lead to success for everyone, right? Not just, the leader, but also, everybody, right? All the employees were, I mean, it makes sense, but when I guess we have to define success. Success means the company is growing, the company has loyalty, employees love what they do. Every morning they get up and say, hey, I'm going to work, or, and so what is that? I mean, how does all this parlay to success, right?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Some owners or CEOs might say, okay, this is too much investment. I mean, I love the way things are. do I really need to embrace all this and go out of my way to make all this happen? And
Yeah.
what is your
Well,
answer to that?
again, I mean, that's the message. The message is it's worth the investment because you're investing in your people. And if you don't invest in your people, well, they'll leave. I mean, if we don't have enough proof about that, then I don't know what it's going to take.
And
to be
people
honest.
are very hard right now to find new people.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. So how we can handle that is we can treat our people the way they want to be treated, the platinum rule, right? So is DEIB an investment, a worthwhile investment? 100%. And it doesn't mean, here's what I found. Some people were afraid of it, right? They didn't want to talk about race. They didn't want to talk about how there were too many men in the C-suite and not enough women. There weren't any people of color in there. Yes, their diversity was good on the lower ranks, but let's take a look at the higher ranks. How many are getting promoted in that such? So they didn't want to talk about it because they looked at it as being negative. So much. I mean, right now, the whole debate on critical race theory. Well, guess what? It's real. So some people don't want to deal with it. Here's the thing. If you don't deal with it, then your good people and potential good people will not come. And if they do come, and this is another part of it, they may leave. I know several companies who've told me they did recruit people, but guess what? The culture wasn't inclusive. So those people left, right? So and we know how much it's costs a lot of money for a company to have to hire again, a lot of money, right? It's a lot of lost time and a lot of money that you lose when you keep having turnover. So what companies can realize is that it's very important for them to create an inclusive culture, but not just create it, but to sustain it. So if you sustain it, then that means people aren't leaving. That means inviting different people to come to the table, and incorporating some skills that we've talked about today, asking the questions, showing that you care, showing that you can be trusted, that you're likable, doing all those things. And we didn't talk a lot about listening, but listening is another part of it. If you don't want to hear it, then that's a barrier. So again, we have to change our mindset and be willing to listen. And be at the level of listening where we are empathetic, remember, because people want to be accepted and they want to feel felt. So when we're doing the right kind of listening, then people do feel that way. They do feel as though you care. So I hope and expect that companies recognize the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion training so that people will feel like they belong. And that's all under leadership because, being on the John Maxwell team, I've been focusing on leadership. And really, a couple of years ago, it's like, wow, you know what? This DEIB subject is big. And if I can train and develop employees and leaders on subjects that I already do with leadership, then we will already conquer the DEIB conversation because it's inclusive. Everyone wants to feel appreciated and included. And not judged, whether it's a man that's leaving his office early to go to his daughter's soccer game, or a woman who's going to have a baby and goes out on maternity leave, or a father who's going to have a baby and goes out on paternity leave, that everyone feels included. And that's really what DEIB is all about. Does that make sense?
Totally. I think the father going on a paternity leave is something that more businesses need to embrace now. It happens more and more now, and I think it wasn't as evident in the last 5 years, right? This is something that's becoming more important now, and I think we need to embrace that.
And it's inclusive. That's what you call being inclusive, not that this rule applies to this person and this rule applies to that person. It's big and it's complicated. It is. It's big and it's complicated, and it's critical for everybody to embrace.
Michelle, these were amazing answers, amazing insights. I know I've learned a lot from you today. Let's ask the audience if they have questions. I'm sure they do. Go ahead. This is an open mic. You just unmute your mic. Just hit the space bar. Piyush, Murali, Krish, Ashok, Suresh, Alan. Anybody has questions? Michelle, go ahead, please.
Some questions or some thoughts somebody has.
Some thoughts as well. Yeah. What do you all think? Yeah.
How easy it is to do DEIB in a startup environment?
Okay, so this is Krish asking the question about startups and DEIB. Yes.
No, I got DAB, but how it's not easy to do that in a startup environment because you don't have time, you don't have all the resources, right?
So what is it that you wouldn't have time to do? Help me understand that part of it.
I mean, to take the time to organize all of these things in a very structured way. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think so, your points are well taken. You got to ask open-ended question. That's all very, very valid. Yeah, we will try that. But when you are in a startup, there is only 3-4 people, and you just have to run with what you got. Right.
So you know what, I'm really glad you asked that question because you're in the process of building a culture, right? I mean, when you only have 3 or 4 people, that's the beginning of the culture. And you know what, Krish, it can be as simple as, first of all, who's on your team? And so we're talking about diversity. Who's on your team? Are they all the same, or is there some differences, right? Well, that's diversity. So when you decide where you're going to recruit from, the tendency is to go to the places where we know we find the people we found. The stretch out of the comfort zone, the thing we can do different is go to some other sources. So when you're in your recruiting, what that means is identifying some other sources where you would recruit from so that you can have some diversity, right? And then the diversity of thought. So we're talking age, gender, race, right? Which things you would find out during the interview process. So that's one way that you would do it. And in addition to that, then to create your culture, it would be sitting around the table and discussing ideas, including people in the thought. That's inclusion, right? So, and then when you include people in the thought, belonging is like the result of the inclusion that you do, right? Does that make sense, Krish? Did we lose him?
No, I think Krish's mic just fell off somehow. But
hopefully that
I think he
makes
can hear
sense.
you, yeah.
Okay.
I think this is a very good point. I think Murali has a question as well. Murali, go ahead.
Sure. Well, I was going to answer a little bit, add to what Michelle said. Michelle, thank you very much for talking out and encouraging us to have open questions and, emphasizing the need for appreciation, however good we are. It's always very important to have, little bits of honey given to us, right? It sort of enlightens the day. That's kind of what I say. So it's very useful. Thank you. And I'd love to follow up separately with you. We have a different set of problems that we deal with. And I'm in a startup. I used to run large teams in Starbucks and Microsoft, had experience to different realms. I always had high percentage of women leaders in my organization. The Starbucks team that I had was 58% women leaders who were directors who were reporting to me at the time. So I wanted to add one thing to Chris's question. As a startup, I'm in a startup right now. We have about 20, 30 people. To me, diversity is not only looking at the people inside the company, because we are always recruiting or talking to customers, talking to investors, talking to prospects. And every occasion, it's sort of, we have to remind ourselves, we're working with people. While I like to sell the idea, sell the problems and how we can solve them, it's equally very, very important to listen more, because we never learn the problems until we listen. Yeah. And so it's a 360-degree thing. Now, often the thing that I see is it's emphasized as a top-down leaders, please adopt this new mantra of diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, it's actually applicable in multiple directions. So my question to you is, my understanding of DE is not only about the leaders, it's also about individuals. So what do we help individuals in the organization to tune in, to be part of the belonging, adopting that DEI mindset? It's easy to go complain, right? But really, how can we be part of a problem and a solution? I'd love to hear your.
Thanks for asking that. Yeah, thanks for asking that too. And also I'm so glad you asked, because I actually am in the process of completing an online self-paced course on DEI. And the reason why I'm creating that is because the leaders do get the training first. And then my concern is it doesn't filter down to the employees. And so that's really important. So that's the reason why I created that course. So good question, right? how we can do that is so it's a culture. Again, I'm going back to the culture. The culture that we create is that we show that we serve, to your point, different people in the community. I mean, we have to take a look at the whole picture, the community, our team, the employees. So there's a lot to consider. It has to be a priority that we provide our team with understanding, because it all starts with awareness of what it is. I mean, there's definitions. What does it mean? I mean, diversity might mean, for the employee, from the employee perspective, typically maybe you were in a group and you collaborate with 3 or 4 people. Let's talk about how you can go to another department or 3 or 4 different people who you haven't asked their opinion yet to get their insight. So collaboration with people who you might not have initially collaborated with. That's diversity at the core, right? Is getting some different opinions, getting some different perspectives, and inviting different people to get different insights. So that's diversity, right? So instead of just working with the same group of people you've always worked with, let's go to this group of people. Let's invite that group over to our next meeting and find out what they're thinking. Does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah, that's very helpful. I guess, I met everybody in this panel is completely new people for me. So it's actually very useful for me to get these perspectives and insights. Michelle, I'd love to learn about your course thing. And, my company focuses on training workforce.
Yeah, I
So
noticed that.
Partner, I'd love to,
yeah,
there's a way to do that.
So I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a note of that, and I'm making sure that I wrote your name down.
Happy to introduce everybody to Michelle after the
okay, thank you.
Fireside Chat. I mean, one thing I've experienced, Michelle and Murali as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure Krish, you've had so much experience at Siemens and many other companies yourself, is what I find is diversity when you have a very, not only diversity in employees, but diversity in suppliers, diversity in customers. I think all those things have a very, I would say, positive effect in generation of new ideas. I think Michelle talked about that. It leads to a lot of creativity. And I think as long as your eyes and ears are open to that you are able to distill and understand, and say, how diversity can be, I would say, a game changer for you, how it can actually help you transform, and create that culture of creativity and idea generation, then I feel like those companies are better innovators, in the long term. They understand not only their business better inside out, but they understand their customers better outside in. And I think they are able to create, a much stronger, mode for themselves, Mostly you talked about Microsoft, some of the changes they made, from know-it-all culture to listening and learn it all, the current leader. And, I'm sure that was a transformation there. And when you talk about learn it all, I'm pretty sure that meant embracing the kind of thing that Michelle is talking about today.
So, Michelle, I have a question and a comment as well.
Okay.
So, like I said in the beginning, I'm in Tennessee. All right. So we're all right. So the president of the company, one of our distributors, gets up and he says, said all the right things. Okay. Now we need to diversify. We need to do this. We need to do this. Right. The funniest thing is for half a day, okay, every person, all the VPs and the president are all white guys over the age of 40. Okay, so it's easy for us to preach, okay, but practicing is totally different. And, in some areas it's difficult, obviously, right? But by and large, we really need to do a little more introspect.
You know what? Exactly. And so you looking for just a comment to me on that, from me on that?
Yeah.
So thanks for saying that, Suresh. So you know what? That's what's so frustrating about it. You can talk a good game, but what kind of action are we doing, right? And what I will say is DEIB, it's ongoing. It's a process. I do call it a journey. It is a journey. And so your leaders, Suresh, hopefully they would have someone, a consultant, come in on an ongoing basis, because it's not just a check the box and, okay, this is what we need to do. Okay, next. It's not that. If they really are committed to change, then it's going to take a journey, and there's a lot that's going to be involved, and there's some pain, and there's some uncomfortable conversations. And you know what happens when we go in uncomfortable conversations? When we stick it out, we come out better on the other side, right? So, you know what, but it has to be a commitment. The leaders who I've worked with, they are committed. They're scared. They're scared, because what might happen? You know, you might make somebody mad, or people don't want to hear about what happened that many years ago. We don't want to. So the way that I train on this is not what happened 400 years ago. It's how we're going to move forward based on what's going on now, right? How we're going to move forward together. And it starts with awareness. There's roles that people play in DEIB. I have a chart of roles that people play, and we talk, you know, where they are in the journey. And so the goal is, and it starts as a pioneer, that leader's like, okay, you know what, this is not good. We're going to change. We're going to start this, and we're going a different direction. On down to the obstructor, who's like, no, we're going to wait and see what other people do. This isn't where we need to be. We need to make money, right? So they're not trying to be involved in it at all. And there's levels in between. So the people at the organization, so your leaders, Suresh, in order for them to show they're not just giving mouth to words, but they're putting action behind it, is that they do start to find different places to recruit from. They do start bringing people together to have training and development and conversations about it. And they do start to help people feel as though they belong. And so that's not just putting words to it. You cannot just say this is what we need to do and then not have an action plan to it, because nothing's going to change. So that sounds like a very frustrating environment to be in. And you know, I'd love for us to have a conversation about it, Suresh, if it would help.
For sure.
Michelle, it's Alan in California. Happy again holidays, young lady. My question is, first of all, I want to thank you for having as my mother used to say, this. I know this is a heaven sent, because my mother is in heaven, my foster mother, but today's her birthday, 10 years before the birth. So I know that it was a reason why I'm here today. So thank you, Sanjay, for coming. But my question is, I come from, obviously, when people look at me, and I have a very unique personality. Sanjay knows. People ask me, they say, "Where are you from?" You know, they try to figure out from a different. I say, Earth, and that really throws everything off. So I have a very strange personality. But I served in the military, so I come from the loving of veterans. I come from that's not a tagline. Yes, I grew up in Compton, straight out of Compton.
There you go.
But I take care of my beautiful wife, who has mental illness, and she's to the world. She's Caucasian, but she's actually from Germany. So you know what kind of let's just say challenges I go through, because she has a disability, a learning disability, PTSD, ADHD, bipolar, and schizophrenic. So that's why mental illness is such a passion to me. But my question is, as far as the disability side, I'm actually going to be working with the gentleman on the Saturday. The climate. Do you feel that the business owners, with the entrepreneurs, nonprofits, are not getting enough with their material on their websites and everything for the disabilities and everything else? How do you have that culture question when somebody says, for example, my associate who really can't see, he has challenges with, I guess it's macular degenerative disease, and he gets very frustrated when he can't see big letters. Is that part of the diversity culture in addition to the race and the gender and everything?
Yes, it is, Alan. Thank you so much. And so happy heavenly birthday to your mom too. Yeah, it is. And that's one of the things that I'm saying is that people are, so it's a process, it's a journey, you know. I mean, this is not an overnight success, and I don't have all the answers. I do know this though. like I said, 74% of people are hiding their disabilities in the workforce. That's pretty scary. And so what companies are starting to realize, so again, it's all about awareness. So they have to start to realize, I'll give you an example, something that I learned about recently. Companies usually call a group, a team, a forum meeting, an all hands meeting, right? Well, one of the things that I learned recently was it shouldn't be called an all hands meeting because some people don't have the ability to use their hands. Now that was eye-opening for me. I had not thought about that, right? And so we're continuing to learn and grow as we journey together. And so my message now to companies is, let's not call it that. Let's call it a forum or a team meeting, right? So in terms of having the ability for people to be able to hear, right? Have some extra tools. Equity, that's equity, right? Having that, if someone can't see, you need to provide the ability for them to be able to know what's going on with the audio part. So there's so much, Alan, to this subject. There's so much. And that is something that I work with companies on, because what it does, see, the people who have been feeling like they have to hide their disabilities, when their company starts to acknowledge, here's some things that we're doing, they feel like they're being included and they feel like they belong, and they don't have to hide their disability now. They don't have to be judged for it. They can be included. They feel like they belong at the company. And this is the awareness that companies have to have.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've been looking forward to your course as well. Very much.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Michelle, this has been a pleasure. It's been an eye-opener, everything, I learned so much today from you and from the questions asked by the audience as well.
Me too.
I'm really thankful that we did this. We were debating about the time frame and being it's December, but I'm very happy that Murali, Suresh, Ashok, Piyush, Alan, as well as Krish, folks who came to our Fireside
the right
Chat.
people came. The right people came, right? The people who were supposed to be here.
It's always about quality, right? So thank you, folks, for attending today's Fireside Chat. I hope it was beneficial to all of you. And, we'll start again in the new year. But in the meantime, have very happy holidays with your family, with your friends. Be safe out there, and wishing you all the best of health, in 2022 and beyond. And Michelle, a great thanks to you. Thank you for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Thank you. It's really nice to be able to meet you all, and I look forward to connecting with you for sure, so that we can have, the next conversation. So I'm just gonna look at the chat here really quick. Yeah. So thank you very much. Great questions. It's an ongoing project. This is ongoing. It's lifelong learners, right? So I thank you very much. And Sanjay, thank you so much for inviting me, and great questions you had for me. So thank you. Great conversation.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. And I'll share everybody's context as well. Thank you, Michelle.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.